What's up, Multiverse of Mayhem fans? Today, we're diving into one of the greatest character journeys in all of Star Wars history. And honestly, back in 2008, that statement would have sounded completely ridiculous to a huge part of the fandom, because when Ahsoka Tano first appeared in Star Wars: The Clone Wars, a lot of fans absolutely hated her. People thought she was annoying, unnecessary, overly sarcastic, and way too immature to stand beside established characters like Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Some viewers even argued that giving Anakin a Padawan contradicted the prequel films entirely because she had never been mentioned before in live-action Star Wars. Fast forward to today, Ahsoka Tano is now widely considered one of the most beloved and emotionally important characters in the entire franchise. She survived the Clone Wars, walked away from the Jedi Order before its collapse, fought during the rise of the Empire, confronted Darth Vader himself, helped early rebel movements against Imperial rule, and eventually became one of the last living connections to the entire prequel era. Her evolution across animation and live-action storytelling is honestly one of the most impressive long-term character arcs Star Wars has ever accomplished. So today, we're doing a deep dive into Ahsoka Tano's full journey from reckless Clone Wars Padawan to genuine Star Wars legend. Let's get into it. When Ahsoka first appears in Star Wars: The Clone Wars, she's introduced during the Clone Wars conflict as the newly assigned Padawan learner of Anakin Skywalker, and immediately there's tension. Yoda assigns Ahsoka to Anakin without warning him first, largely because Yoda believes both of them need the partnership to grow emotionally. Anakin initially sees Ahsoka as reckless and inexperienced, while Ahsoka herself is impatient, overconfident, and constantly trying to prove herself in battle. She even gives Anakin the nickname Sky Guy, which instantly became one of the most divisive elements of her early character among fans. But looking back now, what's fascinating is that those early frustrations were intentional. Ahsoka begins her story as an actual teenager thrown into the middle of a galaxy-wide war. She's not emotionally balanced or fully disciplined because she hasn't had time to become those things yet. And that's one of the smartest things Star Wars: The Clone Wars ever did with her character. Instead of introducing a perfectly polished Jedi hero, the show allows audiences to watch Ahsoka slowly mature through experience, failure, trauma, and responsibility. And honestly, that growth becomes one of the most rewarding aspects of the entire franchise. Across multiple seasons of Clone Wars, Ahsoka gradually evolves from impulsive student into capable leader and strategist. One of the key reasons her character arc feels so authentic is because the series repeatedly allows her to make mistakes. She disobeys orders, she rushes into danger, she misjudges situations emotionally. But every mistake teaches her something important. Her maturity develops gradually over years of storytelling instead of appearing suddenly for convenience. At the same time, her relationship with Anakin becomes the emotional backbone of the series. Before Clone Wars expanded the prequel era, many viewers felt Anakin's transformation into Darth Vader in the films happened too quickly. But Ahsoka's presence adds enormous emotional depth to his character. Through her perspective, audiences finally get to see Anakin as a genuinely heroic Jedi general, mentor, and older brother figure. He protects his troops fiercely, cares deeply about Ahsoka, and constantly challenges rigid Jedi traditions in ways that make him more relatable and human. One of the biggest turning points in Ahsoka's journey arrives during the later Clone Wars seasons, when she's falsely accused of bombing the Jedi Temple hangar. And honestly, this storyline completely changes her character forever. After years of fighting beside the Jedi and risking her life for the Republic, Ahsoka suddenly finds herself abandoned by the institution she trusted most. The Jedi Council expels her from the Order while the investigation unfolds, largely because they fear political backlash during wartime. Even Anakin becomes frustrated by how quickly the Council distances itself from her. This arc is incredibly important because it exposes one of the core tragedies of the prequel era Jedi Order. By the Clone Wars period, the Jedi have become deeply entangled in politics, military leadership, and institutional survival. Their fear of public perception begins overriding compassion and trust. Ahsoka experiences that failure firsthand. Even after Anakin discovers the true culprit and proves her innocence, the damage is already done emotionally. The Council offers to reinstate her as a Jedi, but Ahsoka refuses. And speaking of Anakin, we have to talk about the absolute emotional devastation of Star Wars, The Clone Wars Season 7. By this point, audiences already know what's coming. We know Order 66 is approaching. We know Anakin will become Darth Vader. And that dramatic irony makes every interaction between Anakin and Ahsoka emotionally painful. Their reunion before the Siege of Mandalore feels especially heartbreaking because despite everything, they still care deeply about each other. Anakin returning Ahsoka's lightsabers, modified with blue blades similar to his own, acts as one final expression of trust and affection before the galaxy collapses around them. The Siege of Mandalore itself becomes one of the most critically praised arcs in Star Wars animation because it perfectly overlaps with the events of Star Wars Episode 3: Revenge of the Sith. But what truly elevates Ahsoka into legendary status is that her story doesn't end there. In Star Wars Rebels, Ahsoka returns years later during the reign of the Empire, and honestly, this older version of Ahsoka feels dramatically different from the energetic Padawan audiences first met. She's calmer, wiser, more emotionally restrained, and clearly shaped by years of trauma and survival. By this point, the Jedi Order is nearly extinct, and Ahsoka has become something extremely unique within Star Wars mythology. A Force-sensitive warrior no longer defined by Jedi orthodoxy. And then comes one of the greatest moments in modern Star Wars storytelling, Ahsoka confronting Darth Vader. Honestly, this duel works less because of choreography and more because of emotional history. Ahsoka refuses to abandon Anakin completely because she still believes part of him remains beneath Vader's mask. Meanwhile, Vader himself appears emotionally conflicted in subtle ways throughout the confrontation. One of the smartest creative decisions Star Wars ever made with Ahsoka is refusing to turn her into an overly perfect hero. She's compassionate and wise, but she's also emotionally scarred. The Clone Wars, the fall of the Jedi, and Anakin's transformation into Vader permanently affected her worldview. Unlike traditional Jedi, Ahsoka understands how dangerous blind institutional loyalty can become. She trusts individuals more than systems. And honestly, that emotional complexity is a huge part of why older audiences connected with her so strongly over time. Then we eventually arrive at Ahsoka, which fully transitions the character into live-action storytelling after earlier appearances in The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. And honestly, what's impressive here is how naturally Ahsoka fits into live action despite originating in animation. Rosario Dawson portrays her with a quieter, more reflective energy compared to her younger animated self, which makes complete sense considering everything the character has survived. This older Ahsoka carries the weight of galactic history constantly. She personally remembers the Republic, the Clone Wars, the Jedi Order, and Anakin Skywalker before Darth Vader. Few surviving characters possess that kind of perspective. The series also explores one of Ahsoka's deepest emotional fears, repeating Anakin's mistakes. Her hesitation while training Sabine Wren reflects lingering trauma from her relationship with Anakin and the destruction that followed. But perhaps the greatest achievement of Ahsoka Tano's journey is what she represents to Star Wars overall. She bridges generations of the franchise together emotionally. She connects the prequel era, Clone Wars, Rebels, the original trilogy timeline, and modern Disney Plus storytelling into one continuous emotional narrative. Very few Star Wars characters have evolved across this many eras while still feeling authentic and consistent. And maybe most impressively of all, Ahsoka's popularity wasn't immediate. She earned it through years of storytelling, growth, vulnerability, and emotional complexity. She transformed from one of the franchise's most controversial additions into arguably one of its most beloved characters. That almost never happens in fandom culture. So there you have it, Ahsoka Tano's incredible journey from reckless Clone Wars Padawan to genuine Star Wars legend. And honestly, her story might be one of the best examples of long-term character development in modern franchise storytelling. Because at her core, Ahsoka represents survival. She survived war, betrayal, loss, and the collapse of everything she once believed in, and somehow still chose compassion instead of hatred. Now, I want to hear from you. What's your favorite Ahsoka moment across Star Wars? Her duel with Vader, leaving the Jedi Order, the Siege of Mandalore? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, smash that like button, subscribe to Multiverse of Mayhem, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next breakdown. Stay chaotic, stay informed, and remember, the multiverse is mayhem. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.